Bismillah. Let us talk about one of the most interesting stories in the Quran. Now, I don't want to refer to it as a story because when we say the word story, it normally refers to as some kind of entertainment. But the Quranic lessons are designed for ibrah, designed to get, lessons, warnings, teachings, something that are real world experiences that actually happen. The narrations in the Quran are events that took place to real people in real situations, and that's what the Quran captures to us and it tells us. Now, the story I want to get into today is concerning of one of the four kings of the world, Nimrod. Now, he's referred to as one of the four kings of the world. In the population, the world population at that time was pretty significantly smaller than it is now, right? Hence, those who became kings that controlled the entire world, such as Nimrod, Bukhtanasar, you have Suleiman, alayhi salam, and you have Abdul Qarnayn. These four are considered the four who ruled the entire world. They were governing the whole thing. Now, Namrud is one of the early ones. He was from Babylon, and Babylon is also an ancient city. So, Namrud, with his kingdom, with his power, and on a side note, one thing we should understand is the lifespan of the people of the old were a lot longer than us. It is narrated that Namrud was a king for about 700 years. Right? It's not that he was alive for 700. He must have been alive for much longer. But what's narrated is that he was a king for 700 years. Now, that's pretty significant time. And him having the absolute authority that no power could, challenge him, it caused him to declare himself to be God. Now, this is what you find when people reach a certain level of power, when they think nobody can challenge them. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what happened and how things happen. And what I want to point out here is, I know in our modern time now, when we are taught to look at history, it's always associated with ignorance. The people of the old were not advanced, they were not technological advanced, they were either cavemen or, barbarians or etc. etc. But that's far from the truth. Because the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the people of then were actually much more advanced and much more superior to the ones now. For example, take even Ad. For example, Allah says, إِرَمَ ذَاتِ الْعِمَادِ الَّتِي لَمْ يُخْلَقْ مِثْلُهَا فِي الْبِلَادِ. That they've created a town, a place, and a structure of technological advancements that no one was ever able to replicate or even compare to even after them. So they had a high level of standard that we cannot even dream of. Namrud was such. Now, what's fascinating is, again, for us to look at it in this point of view, to actually have a glimpse of what he or the mindset that they had. So he claims to be Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives chances to the people. He never really, dominates or sends, his authority to destroy just without any warnings. It always gives the people the benefit of the doubt, gives them warnings, sends prophets. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was the one to be sent to Nimrod. Nimrod reasons that he is God, and Ibrahim alayhi salam points out that he cannot do what God can do. For example, to bring the sun out from the east, right? No matter how much a person can claim to be, they cannot control the very fabric of this universe. That kind of irritated Nimrod. So what did he do? Instead of understanding his insignificance and, going about it in a way that's intellectual, but he didn't. He was like, you know what? I'm going to challenge this God. And he did create the famous tower, the Tower of Nimrod. And his idea was to climb there and to fight with Allah. Throw his equipment, his weapons. It didn't succeed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala retaliated by sending a mosquito, and that entered his, in one narration says the nose, the other ear, but it entered his head, inside his brain, and it was living in there, causing all the racket, the buzzing sound of the mosquito. So Nimrod was irritated from this, and anybody would. I mean, if you've ever heard a mosquito, the sound of a mosquito, the buzzing sound is truly tormenting. Imagine if that's actually inside your head. So he was trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, humiliated him in public many times. For example, Namrud would actually order one of his attendants to have a shoe ready. That whenever the mosquito would keep buzzing, he would want this guy to whack him in the head with the shoe. And this is a form of degrading him, because him claiming to be God is being hit with a shoe on the head. And this is ibrah, this is lessons, but still he didn't want to change. So he came up with an idea. He's like, you know what, I'm going to transcend this human body. And he ordered his people to create for him a head of gold. And this should not be understood as gold in the sense of just a solid mass of gold. This was actually supposed to be the head that replaces his own head. Now this is where we get into the technology aspect of it. Because to think that a people in this world once upon a time attempted to create what we can consider today to be cyborgs, half human, half machine type, he wanted to create that. And it could actually even be viewed that he was one of the first to attempt this. And from what it looks like, he did succeed. They did create the head. They did create something that would work. Come surgery time, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so that he dies on the table. Right? But had he not died, he would have succeeded in creating, half like the head of a superior machine that would allow him to function in a way in which is different than the rest. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it in a way in which that's what he would die with his own hands. Now, what we want to take from these lessons is the Western world that we're in now. Because when you hear the word technology, you think of Silicon Valley, you think of these places that have, technology, these new things, holograms, etc., etc. You never really think about how mankind has actually reached higher states. And sadly, you don't normally hear this again, because from the academic point of view, it's the things that they don't like to get into, because it goes against the narratives that the academics have. And we've seen a number of these types of stories. For example, even ancient Egypt, the Egyptians, how Pharaoh, the advancement that they had, the things that they were done, it's always downplayed as, barbarians, people who couldn't really do much. And it's always, whenever something significant comes out, it's always marveled as, oh my God, how do these people do it? And you have even some people, quote unquote, experts who would say these are aliens. This is just downgrading the advancements that humankind has accomplished. And you find many of these types of lessons in the Quran. And for us to be able to look into it with this type of understanding actually gives us a better understanding, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he shares, what he told us in the Quran, the lessons in there are meant for the people to benefit from them and to actually take these things and to create something better in a way that's obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not disobedience. So let's start